In a follow-up to yesterday's podcast, is joining the Big Ten Florida State's best option? In a word, yes, but there are other options. We'll discuss them right here on Locked On Big Ten.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and a play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, we get into the baseball season, the dog days of summer too. Sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started. All right, we're going to talk about Florida State's options. Again, Big Ten, still the best option. But we're going to look at this here. Plus, we'll talk a little recruiting and good job, Zach Edey, top 10 pick in the NBA draft. I have some thoughts on that, actually, plus our picks at the end of the podcast. Yesterday, we talked at length about Florida State and where things stand with their lawsuit against the ACC and the horrible media grant of rights deal. And the reason we brought it up, it's just a fascinating topic for us here at Locked On Big Ten. And we ultimately believe that Florida State, win or lose in the legal system via the court case or by settlement, Florida State will depart the ACC and join the Big Ten. That's what we have always thought will happen. That's the end game here. But on yesterday's podcast, and by the way, go back and check it out. All of our podcasts are archived right on our website, Talk Big Ten, the number 10. Don't spell it out. The number 10, talkbig10.com. It's right there. And it focused on recent comments by ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips and his comments where he said that he specifically would fight tooth and nail against Florida State and Clemson, who are both suing the conference. That he would fight their departure and he would fight them regarding this bad media deal, which Phillips reiterates both Florida State and Clemson agreed to. They did. It's true. It just turned out to be a horrible deal. Bad timing with the marketplace. You know the story very well. We've talked about it here as well. Now, that deal only pays member ACC schools about $30 million a year, as their colleagues in the Big Ten and the SEC receive north of $70 million a year, and that's on its way up to $100 million a year. To make matters worse, the ACC schools are stuck in this deal until 2036 unless something changes. What's really bad about that is the Big Ten and the SEC that just got more lucrative deals. Their deals get even better. Those deals will expire, and they will be able to get more deals after that moving forward. So they'll have a whole nother contract making even more money in the future. So this is a really bad deal for the ACC. So for more on Florida State's perspective, remember, school president Richard McCullough wanted an ACC exit plan on his desk by the end of 2023. And in December, that's when the lawsuits were filed. So the Florida State Board of Trustees, their chairman, Peter Collins, he spoke this week at the Capital Tiger Bay Club's monthly luncheon, and he let everyone know that Florida State is worth way more than it is getting paid, and he said that he would challenge anybody to tell me that we're not, and to tell me that we're worth the same amount as other schools of the conference from a media standpoint is not true. That's what he said. Those are his words. I think a lot of people would agree with that. First of all, up until now, we've heard arguments about whether the conference schools are getting paid what they should be. But this is the first time that anybody of importance is taking a shot at other member institutions in the same conference. You know, he's saying, hey, we're Florida State, right? And we're worth way more than those guys at Virginia Tech and Duke when it comes to football. Now, he's not wrong. But it's like that real estate analogy I gave you on yesterday's podcast. You never want to be the most expensive house in your neighborhood. All the lesser houses will bring your value down. But you would never hear Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State publicly say, hey, we're worth way more than Indiana or Northwestern. What are we doing here? By the way, it may be true, but nobody's ever going to say that publicly. But the sentiment leads me to ponder other options now for Florida State. Again, I think at the end of the day, they leave the ACC and jump to the Big Ten. So what are the other options, though? And I'm not talking about other options like jumping to the SEC. That would be on the table, of course, or jumping to the Big 12, which I find that laughable. Anybody talking about Florida State going to the Big 12, it's laughable. Because relatively speaking, the Big 12 is barely a step above the ACC right now. They're going to be in the same situation, especially with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. So could remaining in the ACC actually be an option? Stay there after all this? There's something called the Success Initiative. What is the Success Initiative? It's where the ACC would no longer pay each school the same amount each year, like all the other conferences do, and like they do currently. Instead, the more successful or lucrative teams like Florida State and Clemson will get a bigger slice of the ACC pie, and schools like Duke and Virginia and North Carolina State would get a lot less. It would be very unbalanced. I think at this point, Florida State would consider such an initiative. They brought it up before, but the ACC said that plan is dead on arrival, and that's when the lawsuits started flying in December. That was kind of the last ditch effort to try and salvage this thing before everybody went crazy with the lawsuits. Trustee Chair Collins said, our ultimate goal is to get paid what we are worth. He had mentioned weeks ago that Florida State and Clemson were taking all the arrows and the legal expenses by filing these lawsuits against the ACC. Other schools like North Carolina and Miami, according to us, are just kind of taking a wait and see approach, and a much more, less expensive route, I might add, letting those guys do the lawsuit and just kind of sitting back and watching what's going on. And they're probably rooting on their colleague schools, Clemson and Florida State. But once these lawsuits are settled and other ACC schools can then follow suit, right? Hey, if Florida State and Clemson, they go do this lawsuit, they either win or they settle and they clear the deck to leave the ACC, go to the Big Ten. Now the other schools in the ACC, like a Miami or North Carolina, they'll go, hey, all right, we're with them. We're doing what they're doing. So they're just kind of sitting and waiting to see how this thing plays out. But Florida State's not doing this for the good of the other schools like Miami and North Carolina, for example. It's doing this for Florida State and Florida State alone. Collins talked about all the metrics here. He said Florida State is convinced that they're a top 5 school in the country when it comes to marketability. And he might be right. They've won multiple championships. They've invested heavily in football. They generate massive TV ratings. Collins compared Florida State to student athletes who now get paid for name, image, and likeness. The school should be paid for name, image, and likeness. And then they should get what they're worth. And that they are woefully underpaid. That's what he said. Now, how many of you, like me, think it's very ironic that a school is now using an example of student athletes finally get paid as the example to cry poor? That's a topic for another day. We could get into that. But Collins closed by imagining how woeful the ACC TV deal would be without Florida State and without Clemson. Hey, you don't have us, you'd be getting even less money. Again, it's the same thing what could happen to the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. Same example. So we may find out sooner than later because the ESPN can reopen this deal in the wintertime if they want to. But if Clemson and Florida State or anybody else wants to bolt from the ACC and play in another conference like the Big Ten, for example, in 2025, the ACC must be notified by August 15th. That's less than 7 weeks away. What do you think about that? Love to hear from you on that. A lot of options on the table. A lot of things can be happening in the next 7 weeks as well. Hit us up. You can hit us up on Twitter at TalkBig10, number 10. Our website, talkbig10number10.com. By the way, get all your favorite Big Ten merchandise there. Get ready for the 2024 football season. And also your comments on YouTube have been pretty good. You guys go back and forth there. Always enjoy reading those. And I respond. In fact, hit me up this weekend. I'll be perusing there. I'll be looking at them, and we'll get back to you on some of those, the really good ones out there. So between Twitter, YouTube, website, stay in touch with us. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. So we have that for you. By the way, the audio comes out at 4 a.m. Eastern, the video at 6 a.m. Eastern as well. I was pleasantly surprised to see Zach Edey go so high in the NBA draft. Good for him. I think that's fantastic. Maybe it'd be a resurgence of the big man. How about you? Do you have a surprise? Were you surprised as well? Plus, I got the latest recruiting news. That's all coming up right here on Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula to winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. And all you everydayers out there, thank you very much. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget to check out our website at talkbig1010.com for all your latest merchandise and all of our podcasts right there at your fingertips. So other than French players dominating the early first round of the NBA draft, I was most pleasantly surprised by Purdue's Zach Edey going 9th overall to the Memphis Grizzlies. Most mock drafts had him going mid to maybe even late first round, as the day of the big man in the NBA seems to have gone by the wayside. But, you know, Memphis really does need some height and a rim protector. And at 7'4", that's exactly what they're going to get in Zach Edey. And look, I think there's a need for some height in the Western Conference, and there's some big men that are really dominating the conference. So I think that might help. Maybe a slight comeback, a slow comeback for the big man in the NBA. Speaking of big men, Indiana's Khalil Ware went 15th in the first round to Miami. He's young, he's promising, a little thin, going to get bounced around a little bit, but ultimately, I think he's going to be a really good player. Going to be next to Bam Adebayo. He's Bam light. Going to play next to the real thing, really. And Illinois' Terrence Shannon Jr. He went 27th to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Of the 3 Big Ten players that went in the first round, I think he's the most NBA ready right now out of the box. I don't know if he has the highest ceiling, but he's ready to go on day one. And he's going to a great team, and they can ease him in. I think it'd be a good place for him right there. Meanwhile, back to football. Nebraska did a pretty good job recruiting quarterbacks lately, right? Well, they won't be getting 2026 target Oscar Rios. Rios announced that he's going to Purdue, of all places. Needless to say, that announcement left more than a few people scratching their heads. He's a 3-star from Downey, California, and he's a pro style. He got a good arm, can throw. And a lot of other schools were interested in his services, including Auburn and Kansas and Washington and Utah and Michigan State, Cal, Arizona, and UNLV. Plus, it's early. We're talking 2026. These kids switch their minds every day. So we'll continue to keep an eye on him as well. Of course, there is excitement for this upcoming season for the Huskers, especially at quarterback with Dylan Raiola coming in. And the Huskers are actually looking at Dylan's brother, Dayton Raiola. He may be coming to Lincoln in 2026, and this may have been one of the reasons that Rios decided not to come to Nebraska. Saw that Michigan's new running backs coach, Tony Alford, he spoke recently, and guess what he talked about? Right, he came from Ohio State. Well, why did you leave Ohio State to go to Michigan? Well, and he was at Ohio State for 9 years, and he just said for all the parties involved, Ohio State, him, it was just time to move on. It was just time, he kept saying. So I don't know if there was a little bit of friction behind the scenes or not. He never said anything bad about Ohio State. He just said it was time to go. He's thrilled to be in Ann Arbor. Sherrone Moore and his staff have welcomed him with open arms. Plus, he gets to coach at a school that really, really focuses on the running game. While at Ohio State, they were a little bit more pass first. I mean, why not? They've had the greatest receivers in college football for the last several years. So anyway, he's excited to be in Ann Arbor. And just look back in time. As you know, we took over this podcast a little more than a year ago, and it was about this time last year that Northwestern was rocked with that hazing scandal. It made national news. We talked about it at length here. After a long review by a team of investigators, it has been recommended that Northwestern enhance its hazing prevention training. Although the results of the review were reportedly positive in most areas, there is some room for improvement. And investigators ended up interviewing over 120 people. That included current and former athletes, non-athletes, faculty, administration, trustees. They got everybody. And this is what they came up with. You'll remember that Northwestern ended up firing head football coach Pat Fitzgerald last summer after 17 seasons at his alma mater amid the hazing accusations swirling around the football team. Fitzgerald is not lying down. He is suing his alma mater for wrongful termination, and he is seeking $130 million. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that situation at Northwestern. And, Coach Braun came in there at this time. Look, you think about him. He had just gotten there to be the defensive coordinator, helped shore up their defense for a team that won one game the year before. He comes in there. All right, I'm going to be the defensive coordinator. I'm the new guy. I'm going to learn things around here, kind of ease in. Boom, head coach gets fired, right? They can't give anybody else the job on the staff because they don't know if they allegedly knew what Fitzgerald knew or didn't know. It was a mess. So, all right, he's the new guy. He doesn't know anything. He's the head coach. Turned out to be never been a head coach in his life. Never been in a major Division I program before. You're the head coach. And all he did was become the Big Ten Coach of the Year and win 8 games and win a bowl game. So phenomenal story at Northwestern. And now they're getting their brand new football stadium. Going to play on campus this year, right on the shores of Lake Michigan, and bleachered seats on the old soccer field. Had to kind of create not a fake stadium, but they had to come up with something. They tore down Ryan Field. The renderings look spectacular. Going to take 2 years, and then they'll have a great facility there at Northwestern that they will love to play in. And by the way, bigger games this year, like Ohio State, that obviously would have a lot of attention. They're going to go play those at that game's gonna be at Wrigley Field, for example, because the facility on campus is too small. But anyway, lots going on there at Northwestern in just the last 12 months. It's been an unbelievable 12 months for the Northwestern athletic department. All right, listen, I don't know if you watch Fox Sports, FS1, ESPN during the daytime with all the talking heads yelling and screaming at each other, trying to spew facts, and whoever's the loudest is the right one. Sometimes you got to turn it down. Got a better option for you. It is called Locked On Sports Today. Locked On has a free 24/7 sports streaming channel. Sometimes this program will be on there as well. And it brings you the biggest stories without all the screaming and the nonsense out there. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV Channels app, which we tell you about all the time. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right. On Fridays, we like to do picks, point spreads, that kind of thing. The season has slowed down a little bit here. But we're going to look at some futures. I got pulled some things. There's some things we've looked at before, but these lines, they change, after spring ball or transfers or whatever the case may be. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at winning national championships, Heisman trophies, focus on some Big Ten players here, win totals. We're going to jam it all in here. That's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. We love sports. I was just talking about how the sports season's kind of winding down here in the summertime. But even if that happens, and the sports aren't quote unquote sportsing the way we like them to, FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All you have to do is open up the app and dream up any bets that anytime, whatever you're in the mood for, it's there. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/locked on and make the most of your summer. It's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Lots of baseball going on. In fact, I got a few tips for you right now for here Friday night. Let's parlay the Phillies over the Marlins, the O's over the Rangers. Just a 2-team parlay there. And I also like the Blue Jays over the Yankees on Friday night. What say you? Check it out. That's on FanDuel, of course, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we wind down the week by taking a look at our picks. And yeah, we're going to do some futures for Pickskin picks. I know we don't have any games, but we got some stuff to look at. For those of you listening on audio only on your favorite podcast app, we'll describe it in detail what we're putting up on screen. Let's discuss. Here it is, full screen. Just a group of 3 things we could keep an eye on. We've done some of these in the past before, but the lines change as we get closer to the season. So let's start off on the left-hand column, 2024 Heisman Trophy. Carson Beck, Georgia, Quinn Ewers at Texas, and Dylan Gabriel at Oregon are all tied at plus 800 right now. Will Howard is also getting a lot of run at plus 1,200 out of Ohio State. So, he's going to get a great opportunity. So, he probably wouldn't get that at a place like Kansas State, but he's going to get noticed at Ohio State, win, lose, or draw. So he's in the mix here as well. National championship favorite odds right now, still Georgia at plus 400, Alabama plus 600. The highest ranking Big Ten team is Ohio State at plus 800. Texas in there at plus 850. Michigan, I'm moving up a little bit, plus 1,000. Oregon at plus 1,200. I got Penn State at plus 2,200. And then I grabbed USC a little further down the list. They are plus 3,300. So I'm just thinking in my mind right now, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State, and USC. I think these are going to be the 5 teams in the Big Ten this year fighting for the Big Ten title. And I think 3 of those 5 teams will get into the college football playoffs. That's what I think. Win totals. They've got Ohio State and Oregon both at 10.5. And definitely might take the over on both. Definitely take the over on one. One of them's going to win. They play each other in October. That's the game of the year, by the way. Ohio State at Oregon in October. That is a tough ticket to get already, as a matter of fact. So those are a look at some of the odds as we head into the weekend. These will change. We will update them throughout the summertime as well. So always fun to look at those and take a peek ahead and see what you think as well. Always a bunch of ways to get a hold of me. Hey, if you're not doing anything over this weekend, get a hold of me. We got Twitter at X at Talk Big Ten 10. Don't forget on YouTube and our website, talkbig1010.com. It's the number 10. Don't spell it out. Talkbig10.com. Get your merchandise for your favorite team. Get ready to cheer them on during the fall football season. And all of our podcasts are right there, including this one, talkbig10.com. Be sure to subscribe before you leave and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app. And you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. I know you know somebody who's a Big Ten fan or an alum. Maybe they're family members, maybe they're friends. Tell them that we're here. Tell them about us. Word of mouth helps this thing spread, and get them to subscribe as well so that we're here for you every single day, because we are here every single day talking Big Ten. After you watch a couple more episodes of Locked On Big Ten, I invite you to tune in and check out our friends from Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe for the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel there. That'll do it for us. Again, have a fantastic weekend. Stay cool. It is hot out there. We roll into the month of July next week. Big Ten Media Days are in July, and then we're practicing and getting ready for football. Coming up the second week of July, we're going to start our Big Ten previews of all the Big Ten teams. Every single day, we're going to focus on what we got 18 of them to do. 18. It's going to take a few weeks, but we'll cover every one of your favorite teams in depth, getting ready for the 2024 season. All that is right here on Locked On Big Ten. Thanks for joining us. Can't wait to talk to you next time. I'm Craig Sheeman.